Let's meet Jorge Mario Bergoglio. He was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. His family came from Italy. He lived a long and interesting life. In the year 2013, something very important happened. Jorge Mario Bergoglio became the Pope. The Pope is the head of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is a very large group of Christians all over the world. When he became Pope, he chose a new name. He chose the name Francis. So people know him as Pope Francis. Pope Francis was special for many reasons. He was the first pope ever to come from the Americas. He was also the first pope from the Southern Hemisphere. Before him, most popes came from Europe. He was also the first pope from a group called the Jesuits. The Jesuits are a special group of priests in the Catholic Church. Many people liked Pope Francis because he seemed very kind and humble. Humble means he did not think he was more important than other people. He lived a simple life. When he became Pope, he did not move into the big, special apartment where popes usually lived. Instead, he chose to live in a smaller place, a guest house. He liked to be close to people. He wore simple white clothes, not the fancy red capes that some popes wore before him. He even used a simple metal cross, the same one he used before he was pope, instead of a gold one. Pope Francis cared very much about people who were poor or had problems. He often talked about the need to help them. He chose the name Francis because of Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis lived many hundreds of years ago and was famous for loving the poor and nature. Pope Francis wanted his work as Pope to focus on helping the poor and showing God's mercy. Mercy means being kind and forgiving to people, even when they make mistakes. He visited poor areas and spent time with people who were sick or in prison. He wanted the church to be like a hospital for people who are hurt. Pope Francis tried to make changes in the Catholic Church. He wanted people in the church to work together more. He talked about caring for our world, the environment. He met leaders from different countries and different religions to talk about peace. He traveled to many places to meet people. His life was full of work, challenges, and important messages. This book will tell you more about the life of Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the man who became Pope Francis. We will learn about his childhood, how he became a priest, his work in Argentina, and his time as the leader of the Catholic Church. 2. Young Jorge Bergoglio. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born in Flores, a neighborhood in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The date was December 17, 1936. He was the oldest child in his family. He had 4 younger brothers and sisters: Oscar Adrian, Marta Regina, Alberto Horacio, and Maria Elena. Today, only Maria Elena is still alive. His parents were Mario Jose Bergoglio and Regina Maria Savori. His father, Mario, was an accountant. He came from the Piedmont area of Italy. Mario's family left Italy in 1929. They wanted to escape the government of Benito Mussolini. His sister said they did not leave Italy because of money problems. Jorge's mother, Regina, was born in Buenos Aires. Her family came from northern Italy too. She was a housewife and looked after the family. As a boy, Jorge went to a school run by the Salesians of Don Bosco. Later, he attended a technical school called Escuela Técnica Industrial No. 27 Hipólito Yrigoyen. He studied chemistry there. He finished his studies and received a diploma as a chemical technician. After getting his diploma, Jorge found work. He worked for several years in a laboratory. The laboratory was called Hicathier Bachmann, and he worked in the food section. His boss was Esther Balestrino. Before working in the lab, Jorge had other jobs too. He worked for a time as a bouncer. He also worked as a janitor cleaning buildings. These jobs were very different from his later life. When Jorge was 21 years old, he got very sick. He had a dangerous illness, pneumonia, and doctors found 3 cysts. It was a very serious time for his health. Because of the illness, doctors had to operate. They removed part of one of his lungs. Thankfully, Jorge recovered from this serious health problem. Recovering from his illness made Jorge think deeply about life. One day, he was walking to celebrate Spring Day. He decided to stop at a church and go to confession. The priest he spoke with that day inspired him greatly. This meeting helped him decide his future path. Jorge decided he wanted to become a priest. He first studied at a seminary in Buenos Aires for 3 years. Then, on March 11, 1958, he took a big step. He joined the Society of Jesus, also known as the Jesuits. He started as a novice, a person learning to be a Jesuit. He later said that when he was a young student, he had liked a girl very much. For a short time, this made him wonder if he should continue his religious studies, but he decided to continue his journey to become a priest. 3. His time as a Jesuit. Jorge Bergoglio felt called to join the church. In 1958, aged 21, he joined the Society of Jesus, known as the Jesuits. A priest inspired him during confession. He first studied at a seminary for 3 years. Then he entered the Jesuits as a novice, someone learning about the order. As a novice, he studied humanities in Santiago, Chile. In 1960, he took his first religious promises of poverty, chastity, and obedience, officially becoming a Jesuit. Bergoglio continued studying. In 1960, he finished studying philosophy at the Colegio Maximo de San Jose, getting a licentiate degree. After studying, he taught literature and psychology at a high school in Santa Fe from 1964 to 1965. He taught the same subjects in Buenos Aires in 1966. Then, in 1967, he began studying theology, the study of God, at San Miguel. On December 13, 1969, Bergoglio became a priest. Archbishop Ramon José Castellano ordained him. He then taught theology and helped train new Jesuit novices. In 1973, he took his final promises as a Jesuit, including a special promise to obey the Pope. That same year, he became the provincial superior for the Jesuits in Argentina. He led the Jesuits in the country for 6 years, until 1979. After finishing as provincial superior, Bergoglio became rector, or head, of the San Miguel School in 1980. He led the school until 1986. Before starting, he spent 3 months in Dublin, Ireland, to learn English. After leaving the rector job, he went to Germany for a few months. He studied at the St. Georgian Graduate School in Frankfurt and thought about writing a doctorate paper about the writer Romano Guardini, but he did not finish this paper. He returned to Argentina and worked as a spiritual director in Cordoba. Bergoglio sometimes had difficulties with other Jesuits. There were disagreements. Some Jesuit leaders wanted the order to focus more on social justice work. Bergoglio preferred focusing on popular religion and working directly with people. Because of these differences, he was replaced as rector in 1986. Later, in 1992, Jesuit leaders asked him not to live in Jesuit houses. There were concerns about his views. When he became a bishop that year, he was no longer under his Jesuit superior's command. He remained distant from the Jesuits for many years until he became pope. 4. Bishop in Buenos Aires. In 1992, Jorge Mario Bergoglio became an auxiliary bishop in Buenos Aires. This means he was a helper bishop for the main bishop, Cardinal Antonio Quaresino. When he became a bishop, he chose special words to live by, miserando ac eligendo. This means God showed him mercy and chose him. 6 years later, in 1998, Cardinal Quaresino died. Then Bergoglio became the new Archbishop of Buenos Aires. As the Archbishop, he was the leader of the church in the city. He created new church areas called parishes and made changes to how the church office worked. He also became the leader for Eastern Catholics in Argentina who did not have their own bishop. Bergoglio cared very much about poor people. He spent a lot of time helping people who lived in the poor areas of Buenos Aires, called villas miserias or shanty towns. He sent more priests to work in these areas. He sent twice as many priests as before. He often visited these poor areas himself. People started calling him the slum bishop because he worked so much with the people in the slums. Archbishop Bergoglio also fixed money problems in the church in Buenos Aires. The church had spent too much money and was close to having no money left. He sold the church's shares in a bank and put the money in normal banks. He made sure the church spent its money carefully. In 2001, Pope John Paul II made Archbishop Bergoglio a cardinal. A cardinal is a very important church leader who helps the pope and can vote for a new pope. As a cardinal, Bergoglio worked in Rome sometimes, helping with important church groups. But even as a cardinal, he lived a very simple life in Buenos Aires. He did not live in the big house for the archbishop. Instead, he lived in a small apartment. He often used the bus or train to travel around the city. He even cooked his own food. People knew him for being humble and simple. In 2005, Pope John Paul II died. Cardinal Bergoglio went to Rome for the meeting, called a conclave, to choose the new pope. Many people thought Bergoglio could become the next pope. Reports said he received many votes and was the second choice after Cardinal Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI. 5. Facing difficult years. During his time as a leader in the church in Argentina, Jorge Bergoglio faced some very difficult years. A main problem was connected to Argentina's history, especially the time called the Dirty War. This was a period from about 1976 to 1983 when a military government ruled the country. Many people disappeared or were hurt by the government. Some people asked questions about what Bergoglio did during this time. He was the leader of the Jesuits in Argentina then. The questions were mostly about two Jesuit priests, Orlando Yorio and France Jalix. In 1976, soldiers kidnapped these two priests. They were held prisoner and tortured for several months. Luckily, they were later found alive outside Buenos Aires. Some people said Bergoglio did not do enough to protect the priests. One of the priests, Iorio, later said he believed Bergoglio did not help free them. A lawyer even made a legal complaint against Bergoglio in 2005 about the kidnapping, but the case was stopped. However, Bergoglio told a writer that this was not true. He said he worked secretly to help the priests get free. He said he spoke to the country's leader, Jorge Rafael Videla, and this might have saved their lives. Bergoglio also said he helped hide people from the government on church land. He even gave his own identity papers to a man who looked like him, so the man could leave Argentina safely. The other priest, Father Jalix, said later that Bergoglio did not report them to the government. Other people supported Bergoglio too. A famous human rights activist, Adolfo Pérez Esquivel, said Bergoglio never helped the military government. A former judge, Alicia Oliveira, said Bergoglio helped many people escape Argentina. Later, when he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Bergoglio also had difficult relationships with Argentina's presidents. He had problems with President Nestor Kirchner. In 2004, President Kirchner came to a special mass. Bergoglio spoke about problems in the country and asked for more political discussion. Kirchner did not like this. The next year, Kirchner did not attend the mass. Bergoglio also stopped a plan by Kirchner to change rules in one part of Argentina. President Kirchner thought Bergoglio was a political enemy. His relationship with the next president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, who was Nestor Kirchner's wife, was also not easy. They disagreed strongly about a new law for same-sex marriage. When Bergoglio became Pope Francis in 2013, President Kirchner first did not seem happy. Some newspapers that supported her government wrote old stories again, saying Bergoglio did wrong things during the Dirty War. But soon, because Pope Francis was very popular in Argentina, President Kirchner changed her way. She met Pope Francis in Rome just before he officially started as Pope. They had lunch and gave each other gifts. It seemed they were trying to have a better relationship. 6. From Cardinal to Pope. Pope Benedict XVI decided to stop being Pope in February 2013. This was a big surprise for the world. It was the first time in many hundreds of years that a pope had resigned. Cardinals from all over the world came to Rome. They met inside the Sistine Chapel to choose the next pope. This important meeting is called a conclave. The cardinals prayed and voted. People outside waited and watched the chimney. White smoke meant a new pope was chosen. On March 13, 2013, white smoke appeared. The cardinals chose Jorge Mario Bergoglio. It was the second day of their meeting. A cardinal announced to the large crowd in St. Peter's Square, "Habemus Papam." This means we have a pope. Bergoglio was the first pope from the Americas, born in Argentina. He was also the first Jesuit pope. Cardinal Bergoglio chose the name Francis. He told people why. During the voting, another cardinal, Claudio Hums from Brazil, hugged him and whispered, "Don't forget the poor." This made Bergoglio think of Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis loved poor people, cared for nature, and lived a very simple life. Pope Francis wanted his time as pope to focus on these things, helping the poor and working for peace. It was the first time any pope had chosen the name Francis. When Pope Francis first appeared on the balcony to the people, he wore simple white clothes. He did not wear the special red cape that past popes often wore for their first appearance. He also wore the same simple iron cross around his neck that he had worn as a cardinal in Buenos Aires. He did not choose a special gold one. He greeted the large crowd with a simple buonasera, which means good evening in Italian. Before giving his first blessing, he asked the people to pray for Pope Benedict and then to pray for him, the new Bishop of Rome. His simple style continued in the days after. He decided not to live in the large papal apartments in the Apostolic Palace. Many popes before him lived there. Instead, he chose to live in a smaller place, a Vatican guest house called Domus Sancti Marthi. He wanted to live more like ordinary people. After the meeting where he was chosen, he surprised people again. He did not take the special pope's car. He took the bus back to the guest house with the other cardinals. The next day, he went to the church residence where he had stayed before the meeting. He collected his bags himself and insisted on paying his own hotel bill. These early actions showed everyone that Pope Francis wanted to lead the church in a different, simpler way. He wanted to focus on God's mercy, helping poor people, and building bridges between people. His choice of name and his first actions showed the world his plan for his time as Pope. 7. Leading the Church worldwide. As Pope, Francis focused on God's mercy. He often spoke about helping people who were poor or in trouble. He wanted the Church to be a place that showed kindness to everyone. He wrote important letters to share his ideas. One letter, Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel, talked about sharing faith and caring for the poor. Another big letter was Laudato Si. This letter was about taking care of our planet, the Earth. Francis said we must protect the environment. He asked for changes in the church. He wanted leaders to listen more to everyone, an idea called synodality. This meant having big meetings where bishops and others could talk together about important issues. He also tried to fix problems with money inside the Vatican. He wanted the Vatican Bank to be more open and honest. He appointed people to check how the bank was run and made some changes. Francis believed it was important to talk with people of other religions. He met many leaders from different faiths. He signed an important paper with a top Muslim leader about peace and living together, called the Document on Human Fraternity. He traveled a lot, visiting countries all over the world. He went to places in Asia, Africa, the Americas, and other parts of Europe. These trips were to meet people, support local Catholics, and talk about peace. He played a part in helping the United States and Cuba start talking to each other again after many years. He often spoke about helping refugees and migrants, saying countries should welcome them. Francis talked about LGBTQ+ people in a kinder way than some past leaders. He said, "Who am I to judge?" But he did not change the Church's teaching about marriage. He supported laws that give same-sex couples legal protections. In Canada, he said sorry for the bad things the Church did in special schools for Indigenous children long ago. He called it a cultural genocide. He also had to deal with the big problem of sexual abuse by priests and bishops. He held meetings about it and made new rules for reporting abuse. But some people felt he did not always act strongly enough. Not everyone in the Church agreed with Pope Francis. Some more traditional Catholics did not like the changes he made or his focus on certain issues. They sometimes criticized his decisions and teachings. 8. His legacy and final years. In his later years, Pope Francis had some health problems. When he was young, part of one lung was removed. Later, he often had problems with his lungs like bronchitis. He also had pain in his knee and back called sciatica. Because of this, he often used a wheelchair or a cane to help him walk. In 2023, he went to the hospital for a lung infection and later for surgery on his stomach. In February 2025, he was in the hospital again for a long time because of serious lung problems. Pope Francis made his last public appearance on Easter Sunday, April 20th, 2025. He died the next morning on Easter Monday, April 21st, 2025. He was 88 years old. His death was caused by a stroke that led to a coma and stopped his heart. Before he died, Pope Francis made plans for his funeral. He wanted it to be simpler, more like the funeral for a bishop. He asked not to be buried in the traditional 3 coffins. Instead, he wanted one simple wooden coffin. He also asked to be buried in a church in Rome called Santa Maria Maggiore, not in the Vatican like most popes. He loved this church very much. People remember Pope Francis for many things. He was known for being humble and living simply. He cared a lot about poor people, migrants, and refugees. He often spoke about God's mercy. He wanted the church to help people in need. He worked for peace and talked with leaders of other religions and countries. He helped the United States and Cuba to start talking again. Pope Francis made changes in the Catholic Church. He chose many new cardinals, and many came from countries outside Europe, from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This made the group of cardinals more international. He wanted the church to listen more to everyone, a process called synodality. He gave women more important jobs in the Vatican and allowed them to vote in meetings of bishops for the first time. He also focused on protecting the environment and wrote an important letter about it called Laudato Si. He asked people to take care of the earth. He spoke against the death penalty and wanted it stopped everywhere. He apologized for the church's part in the bad treatment of indigenous people in Canada. His time as pope also had difficulties. He faced serious problems like the sexual abuse scandals in the church and worked to make new rules. Some Catholics, especially conservatives, did not agree with all his changes or teachings, like his ideas on family life or allowing blessings for people in same-sex relationships. His agreement with China about choosing bishops also caused arguments. His legacy is one of change, focusing on mercy and the poor, but also one that faced challenges.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.